Good evening and welcome back. Thursday and the 11th, another cold day in the neighborhood, more of the same, and in fact more snow in your forecast on more than one occasion. Near term, a clipper system passing through the region late tonight into tomorrow morning, still on tap to bring some light snow showers to eastern Kentucky through midday tomorrow. We do believe accumulations for most places, generally along and north of Mountain Parkway, mainly between a half an inch or less for most everyone. Will sum it up through tomorrow afternoon. Amounts closer to an inch, possible further south. There could be some reduced visibility, could cause some traveling complications as well. And temperatures still taking a dive even lower now for Saturday's estimates from last evening when they then too took a dive. Right now I've got daytime highs estimated Saturday, the newly just have to laugh it off and go on. The newly adjusted temperature for Saturday, 16 degrees, and you're going to factor in a very light wind with that. We'll put wind chills close to zero. Talk about that. And, of course, still some more winter weather looming early next week, some rain and snow. It's going to be that transition phase, and where we're going to be is to determine just exactly how much of which one we do see, but more in your weather forecast in much more detail. It was posted just late last night on the Kentucky Supreme Court's website that they had made a decision in the appeal before them on behalf of Montgomery County Judge Executive Charles Hardin to hear his case as it pertains to the still ongoing and still technically undecided election of November of 2014. I spent most all day going over this case and actually going back a bit so we don't get sort of lost in translation. And indeed, it is quite a read and quite a report that is still ongoing. We'll tell you what they said and what the timeline is now in that regards in just a few moments. A big event set for this Saturday as well. Only a couple of other things before we get to that. Former Governor Steve Beshear is back in the spotlight tonight. He is putting together a nonprofit. He says that he is unhappy with newly elected Governor Bevin dismantling, destroying Kentucky's Connect program, and now there is a nonprofit organization that's set to take to a grassroots campaign to educate voters about it. According to a press release from the organization, which is called Save Kentucky Healthcare, the group is a bipartisan 501c organization that will work on a grassroots level to make sure Kentuckians understand the impact of newly elected Governor Matt Bevin's attempts to dismantle key parts of Kentucky's health reform while helping them fight those efforts. It's also been learned this week that Kentucky would lose some $57 million in grants should the newly elected governor proceed with his plans. The former governor was to make two press releases earlier today in parts of central and western Kentucky on his intentions to try to combat those efforts by Matt Bevin. They just want to be paid what they're worth, they say. There's about 100 commercial vehicle officers, enforcement officers, that is, in Kentucky, and they start out at about $28,000 a year. That program now under the same umbrella as the Kentucky State Police, while troopers start out at $38,000 a year, so they're asking for a $10,000 raise, which would equate to about $1.7 million a year. That money, at least a third of which would come from federal funds. It is House Bill 312. CVE officers primarily enforce the laws regarding to commercial vehicles, but they've become more active as of late. And even if they are granted the same pay as our troopers are still paid considerably less than most all other states, certainly neighboring states, but many others as well. A quick pause for a quick message. We'll pick up Kentucky Supreme Court decision coverage right after this. For high-speed internet starting at 15 meg for all of your gaming, movie, home, and business solutions, or to watch TV, including your favorite local channels without a contract with hundreds of channels and digital and HD quality, and to stay connected 24/7 with friends and family, a direct line to 911, or to give your business the link it needs, choose telephone service you know is always there. Just click on their link on this site to find out how affordable the latest technology in communications can be. Foothills Communications. To be honest, I've got several hours of work today into the following report. It goes back several months through several trials, all pertaining to the November 2014 election for the Montgomery County Judge Executive seat. And this report actually precedes that as well. Of course, it all was brought about after Judge Hardin appealed the Kentucky Court of Appeals verdict when they upheld a lower court's ruling declaring his office vacant. The state's highest court has had that request now for some weeks, and just late last night said that they will be taking the case before them. Before we take a look at the state Supreme Court's decision, we go back to the May primary of 2014 when the legal battles began again. In the May primary on election night, Hardin appeared to have lost re-election by margin of only 3 votes, 2019 to 2022 for H.B. Arnott. The same outcome would later be determined in a recanvassing just a few days later. However, a more thorough recount process later on June the 13th would reverse the outcome when paper absentees were hand-counted again. On election night, there were 94 paper absentee ballots counted for H.B. Arnott and 173 for Hardin, with 9 considered to be undervotes, 9 ballots where the respective voter did not vote for either judge executive candidate and left that race in particular blank. The recount, though, days later of the same absentees, however, would show 93 votes for H.B. Arnott instead of 94, him losing 1, and 178 for Hardin instead of 173, with Hardin gaining 5. The number of undervotes also changed by a 5-vote margin as well, with only 4 to be found or determined to exist. Judge Kimberly Childers, presiding over that recount process, then refused to certify the election results because no one could offer up an explanation as to the discrepancy in the 2 tallies, and she also questioned the integrity of the ballots themselves, thus ordering all materials held by the Kentucky State Police pending or per an investigation, and once again refusing to certify the election results. When Childers' decision was appealed by Hardin, the Kentucky State Court of Appeals, a 3-judge panel of which ruled later that July that Hardin should be declared the winner of the primary election. Now fast forward on to November, when Hardin defeated Republican challenger John Montgomery by a narrow 28-vote margin, 3,281 to 3,253, with Montgomery carrying 10 out of the 14 precincts in Magoffin County, but losing the absentee count dramatically. And with such a slim margin of votes separating the two, Montgomery requested a recanvass. One was held days later on the 13th of November, with all results staying the same. Montgomery filed suit for the second time in as many elections, alleging vote and election fraud. And later in February, Circuit Judge John David Preston declared the office of Hardin vacant. He did so, citing so many violations of election laws and rules, he said, that the results must be thrown out. He included absentee application improprieties, gravel, blacktop, cash paid or traded or used to purchase votes, fraud, and bribery, but he also did so with no finding that Hardin or Montgomery had any hand in any of the wrongdoing. That decision, appealed by Hardin, the Board of Elections, and Montgomery, who was, in addition to seeking the office declared vacant as it was, still seeking as well to be declared the winner. The Kentucky Court of Appeals would take up the case in April. Later in June, the Court of Appeals would uphold the lower court ruling of Preston, throwing out the results of the November 2014 election, and while not unanimous among the 3-judge panel, the majority did rule there was enough evidence to justify setting aside the results. Hardin soon after appealed that decision to the Kentucky Supreme Court, which we heard from late last evening, and he, remaining in office pending his appeal, as he continues to do, has now won at least a victory in the fact that the state Supreme Court will hear his appeal. Had they not, that would have meant the end of his fight to keep his office at that point with no other legal options left. But with the decision to grant discretionary review, it keeps him in his office and thus gives us another timeline. As the state's highest court has granted discretionary review, it has done so with an expedited order, saying that all briefing shall be expedited. Appellants will have 20 days from the day of the order to file their briefs. Appellees shall have 20 days after that to file their briefs. Then the appellants will have a 10-day period after that to file any replies. That means the very first due date is March the 1st. In light of these recent developments, I spoke with one of the attorneys representing Judge Hardin just earlier today. Jim Deckard says the odds of the Kentucky Supreme Court hearing a case are often slim to none. He also credits one of the appeals court judges' dissension largely being the basis for their agreeing to hear the case.
After the trial court's decision, that matter was appealed to the Court of Appeals, and they issued a very split opinion several months ago where 2 judges would uphold the decision that would require a new election in Magoffin County. But one of the judges in dissent wrote a very lengthy, pointed aggressive dissent explaining why Judge Hardin should remain in office and the election results, that is, the votes that were cast by Magoffin County voters, remain untouched. The Supreme Court was then asked to review the Court of Appeals opinion and the trial court's opinion, and that's been pending now, I think, since late summer, early fall. And yesterday they issued a short one-page order granting Judge Hardin's request to review the case. Now, that's remarkable in many ways because they only grant requests in about 15% of cases where they're asked to review. The Supreme Court doesn't have to review any election case, but they have chosen to exercise what they call their discretionary review in this case. And again, only 10 to 20% of cases do they ever grant such review. What heartens me even more for Judge Hardin is in those cases where they grant review, the statistics show that they generally reverse the Court of Appeals in something around 2/3 of the cases. So if you're just looking at the precedent of other cases, what the Supreme Court does, they grant 10 to 20% of discretionary review motions, but when they do grant them, they're looking very hard at the previous decisions, and more likely than not, they reverse cases where they've granted review.
It's my understanding that in standard cases, a 60-day time frame is standard in regards to the time allowed for briefs to be submitted by appellants and appellees, not the 20 that it's been reduced to in an expedited fashion for this particular case. After review of the briefs, the Supreme Court could decide in weeks or months that follow, but it could also set aside oral arguments, which they may, if perhaps they feel the outcome could have any bearing on any Kentucky statutes as to the election process. Oral arguments would more than likely put the decision time somewhere up around August or September, through all of which Magoffin County Judge Executive Charles Hardin will remain so. And keep in mind, this is the second go-around for Montgomery and Hardin. In March of 2011, a 3-judge panel of the Kentucky Court of Appeals dismissed an appeal of a lawsuit alleging election fraud in Magoffin County. Montgomery was part of a suit asking the election be overturned because of vote buying. A special judge said while it was clear there was vote buying in the November election then, there was, however, not enough evidence that the winning candidates had anything to do with it. After the appeals court dismissed Montgomery and also Bob Jordan's appeal, who was also a part of the suit, 3 people were indicted, with one, Randy Salyer, being convicted and sentenced to 20 months in prison for vote buying. Hardin has consistently denied any knowledge or involvement in any election fraud. Tomorrow we'll reach out to John Montgomery and or his attorneys for their input on the case. I'll be right back. Whiskers or Wags is the place you want to be if you want to adopt a new loved one for your home or your family. But not this Saturday. They're taking their show on to the road to some folks who I'm told are very good to them on a regular basis. And thanks to some other folks who are sponsoring some animals up for adoption, well, you can get an animal, a new member of your family, for a very reduced rate. It all happens at Tractor Supply this Saturday. Maybe you could bring home someone special for Valentine's Day. Just a thought. Lisa Roberts Trusty reminds us about the special event at Tractor Supply this Saturday, where thanks to some folks who have sponsored some cats and kittens for adoption, some other folks can take a beautiful, loving face and friend home for only $10.
We have an adoption fair coming up at Tractor Supply, and that is going to be on a Saturday, February 13th. And we're going to have a special. We have a number of cats that are sponsored. So with a very good adoption application, someone would be able to take that cat home with them and make them part of their family.
That's right. This Saturday from 10 till 2, all cats, all kittens, adoption fees will be only $10 with an approved application. That includes spay, neuter, first vaccinations, dewormer, and flea treatment. Now, this special price does end on February the 20th. To get a sneak peek of some of the beautiful cats and kittens they have, you can find the Adoptable Pets link on their Facebook page or visit the Johnson County Animal Shelter yourself at 100 Shelter Way on New 460 in Staffordsville. And on another note, this is the footage that I took during our last report. That report was one of the most widely viewed here on Your News Today. Per calculations and numbers on our website and on my Facebook page, well over 10,000 folks clicked on and watched the update about the Whiskers or Wags Animal Shelter in Johnson County, and Joe, of course, going to his new home at the Mountain Manor Nursing Facility in Johnson County. And a small, literally, part of that program also resulted, we're so proud to say, in a little dog being reunited with its family. This little dog had just been brought into the shelter that day, and I included it in my report on the program. And as it turns out, Trouble's owners, Deanna Lewis, had been looking for Trouble for days. They had feared the worst for their little lost pet, a senior dog, I think around 20 years of age. But after seeing the report, Trouble was found at the animal shelter. Trouble had been well cared for and has since been returned to Trouble's family. Now let's go on over to calendar announcements. First off, a happy birthday wish today, 90 today. That's right, a happy 90th birthday to Ray Borders from a host of family and friends. Happy birthday to you. Calendar announcements, birthdays, and anniversaries all brought to you by McGoffin Farm Bureau, which includes the following. A reminder that the Friendship Quilters will be meeting tomorrow, 10 o'clock in the morning, at the Extension office here in McGoffin County. All invited to attend. There's also a free lunch and learn session following, starting at noon, with the topic of understanding generational differences. And the So What Quilters are meeting this Saturday morning at 9, and new members are always welcome. As are new members to our community calendar. If you've got a birthday, anniversary, or calendar announcement, mail, email, Facebook, phone, fax, drop it off here at the studio. And remember, you can always check out the programming as well. It's aired the following day on our website at yournewstoday.com. And with that, I'm going to expedite the show as quickly as possible and get to your Licking Valley RECC forecast. There's a ball game tonight. I'm going to try to make it on time for a change, and I'll tell you more about the ball game schedule in just a few seconds in closing. But first, let me tell you this. Powered by Licking Valley RECC, we've got 28 degrees and falling right now at the 6 o'clock hour, falling to 16 degrees for nighttime lows. More clouds tonight, increasing clouds. There we go. I skipped ahead a little too quick. Increasing clouds tonight, and look for some isolated flurries between 4 and 5, maybe some isolated snow showers thereafter, and that low once again of 16, only about a 10% chance of some precipitation. Tomorrow for your Friday, snow showers are likely. We'll see daytime highs of 34 and winds becoming west 5 to 7 in the afternoon. A 60% chance of snow tomorrow, and looks to be about a half inch, maybe a little less than an inch. Pretty much covers all of us across the forecast period and the forecast area tomorrow. Tomorrow night, a low of 14 with some scattered snow showers winding down. For your Saturday, isolated snow showers before noon, some flurries thereafter, and the snow will be ending for a bit, but the cold will not. 16 degrees, our newly adjusted daytime high. Wind chill factors close to 4 or less with a northwest wind around 8 miles per hour. Saturday night, just some flurries continuing, and that low of 4 degrees is just going to be brutal. Sunday, it gets up a bit better. We've got 26 expected for your daytime high with a chance of flurries. We'll also see snow likely Sunday night. That will be the onset of our next big winter weather maker. A lot of precipitation associated with this one coming from the south, and it will also be a rain and snow event beginning next week, 41, 40, your daytime high Monday and Tuesday. So we'll be on that line as to how much rain and or snow we see. Before I go, two important high school basketball announcements that I nearly let slip. The McGoffin County Hornets are playing tonight, hosting Prestonsburg, I believe it is. That game time, regular game time. 6 o'clock for JV, 7:30 for varsity. Senior night has been rescheduled for tomorrow night. The Lady Hornets hosting Sheldon Clark tomorrow night. The girls players and the cheerleaders will be recognized tomorrow night, the seniors of which at least. Now, for tomorrow night's events and ceremonies, senior night starts at 6. Varsity tip-off, the only game tomorrow night, will be at 7. But I'll be talking to you just before then. Hopefully, you'll be here, right, for more of Your News Today. Thank you for watching.